Something has shifted. You didn't announce it. You didn't post about it. You didn't gather an audience and declare your evolution. But somehow, they know. The tone in their voice is slightly different now. The jokes feel forced. The pauses last a little longer. There's a subtle tightness in the room when you walk in. You can feel it. Even if no one says a word. You didn't become arrogant. You didn't become distant for attention. You became focused. Quieter, sharper. Your energy isn't scattered anymore. It's directed. And that makes people uncomfortable. They can feel something changing. It's not loud, it's not dramatic, it's internal. The way you respond slower. The way you don't over-explain. The way you don't chase reactions. There's a steadiness to you now. A contained intensity. And that quiet shift, it unsettles them more than noise ever could. Because you're winning alone. And they don't know how to compete with silence. You didn't transform in public. There was no dramatic announcement, no sudden personality shift, no loud declaration that you were entering a new era. Your growth was quieter than that. It happened in early mornings when no one was watching, in late nights when distraction would have been easier, in the small, disciplined decisions that stacked up while everyone else chased stimulation. You didn't get louder. You got sharper. You started choosing your words carefully. You stopped reacting instantly. You let messages sit. You let opinions pass. You stopped explaining yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. That restraint built something inside you, something solid. Emotional control replaced emotional impulse. Precision replaced noise. You're operating from somewhere deeper now. Other people relied on visibility, on constant updates, on external validation to confirm their progress. You chose refinement instead. You chose to build without applause. And that's what makes it powerful. Most people start the process of change. Most people feel the discomfort and retreat back to what's familiar, back to old habits, back to comfort. Most people go back. You didn't. And without saying a word, that difference exposes everyone around you. There's a specific kind of loneliness that comes with growth, not the dramatic kind, not the kind where everyone leaves at once. It's quieter than that. It's sitting in a room you've sat in 100 times before and realizing the conversations don't reach you anymore. The jokes feel recycled. The ambitions feel small. The energy feels familiar in a way that no longer fits. You still care. That's what makes it heavy. You haven't become cold. You haven't become heartless. But something in you has stretched beyond the frame of what once felt comfortable, and they can sense it. The pauses between words grow longer. The shared interests shrink. The alignment weakens not because you betrayed them, because you stopped betraying yourself. You stopped laughing at things that drained you. You stopped participating in habits that kept you stagnant. You stopped shrinking your thoughts so others wouldn't feel challenged. And that decision, that internal shift, created invisible tension. Growth and stagnation cannot occupy the same space for long. Most people go back. You didn't. And that's where the isolation begins. Not as punishment, not as filtration. The room didn't change. You did. The frequency shifted. The depth expanded. What once felt like belonging now feels like limitation. Outgrowing the room doesn't mean you're better. It means you're different now. And difference creates distance before it creates destiny. This is where they enter clearly. They joke about your intensity. They call you different with a tone that doesn't quite land as a compliment. They downplay your discipline. They act unimpressed by the very traits they secretly wish they possessed. What they mock, they admire. What they minimize intimidates them. Your discipline confronts their excuses. Your silence confronts their noise. You don't argue anymore. You don't defend your path. And that restraint forces them into something uncomfortable: reflection. Because envy isn't really about hate. It's about exposure. It's the quiet panic that rises when someone close to you becomes living proof of what's possible. You didn't just improve. You removed the alibi. As long as you were distracted, inconsistent, or self-doubting, they could say success wasn't realistic. They could say growth was luck. They could say discipline was extreme, but now you're consistent, focused, evolving. And you're doing it without drama. That breaks the narrative they relied on. So the energy shifts. The support feels conditional. The encouragement becomes thinner. Not because they want you destroyed, but because your progress destabilizes the comfort of staying the same. Their envy is skinning them alive, not loudly, not publicly, internally. Every time you show restraint, every time you stay committed, every time you rise without announcement. Your existence challenges the story they told themselves about why they couldn't. And mirrors are hardest to face when they can't be broken. But the truth is, they were never the real battle. The real war was internal. It was the mornings you didn't want to get up, the impulses you wanted to obey, the distractions that felt easier than discipline. It was the voice that told you to wait, to doubt yourself, to stay familiar. Laziness wasn't just physical, it was psychological. Self-doubt wasn't loud, it was constant. Emotional chaos felt normal because you had lived in it for so long, and you confronted it. Quietly, you didn't document the struggle. You didn't turn your pain into performance. You sat with it, you studied it, you dismantled it piece by piece. Old coping mechanisms had to die. The need for constant validation had to be starved. The habit of reacting emotionally had to be replaced with measured control. This wasn't self-improvement. It was identity reconstruction. Old, you sought approval. New, you seeks alignment. Old, you reacted instantly. New, you observes. Old, you explained. New, you executes. That shift didn't happen overnight. It was built through repetition, through choosing discomfort over relief, through staying when it would have been easier to escape. They're reacting to a war they never saw you fight. They're witnessing the aftermath of battles that reshaped you from the inside out. The scars aren't visible. The discipline is. And if this is who you are after surviving yourself, understand something clearly. This isn't your final form. Power isn't always loud. In fact, the most dangerous kind rarely is. You don't react instantly anymore. You observe. You let people finish. You let silence stretch just long enough to reveal what's underneath their words. Where you once rushed to respond, you now measure. Where you once defended, you now decide whether it's even worth your energy. Silence creates pressure, and most people can't handle it. They start filling the space with nervous explanations, unnecessary jokes, subtle justifications. They expose themselves trying to escape the discomfort. Meanwhile, you remain steady, breathing controlled, posture relaxed, nervous system calm. You're not suppressing emotion, you've regulated it. That's the difference. You've mastered emotional economy. Fewer words, higher impact, no wasted reactions, no emotional leakage. When you speak, it's intentional. When you move, it's deliberate. That restraint shifts the dynamic in every room you enter. This version of you is harder to access, not because you're playing games, but because you're no longer available to chaos. Access to you now requires depth, respect, alignment, and scarcity changes perception. What is constantly available is often undervalued. What is controlled becomes significant. Winning alone taught you this. You don't need to dominate conversations. You don't need to prove intelligence. You don't need the last word. Your calm is the message. Your restraint is the boundary. And the quiet confidence you carry now, it speaks before you ever do. There was an unspoken contract you didn't realize you signed. You were the relatable one, the accessible one, the one who doubted themselves out loud so everyone else could feel comfortable doing the same. You made your ambition digestible. You trimmed your intensity so it wouldn't threaten the room. That version of you kept the hierarchy stable. Then you broke the contract. You stopped volunteering your insecurities. You stopped shrinking your goals to match their ceilings. You stopped making yourself easy to categorize. And the moment you did that, the balance shifted. Because if you rise, they have to confront why they haven't. Your evolution disrupts comfort. It forces comparison. It challenges excuses that once felt reasonable. So the response isn't always confrontation. It's subtler than that. Backhanded compliments, jokes disguised as concern, sudden distance, reduced enthusiasm, energy that feels slightly off, not because they hate you, because growth forces reflection. And reflection can feel like accusation when someone isn't ready to change. You see it now, the dynamic, the psychology, the quiet tension beneath casual interactions. And instead of reacting with anger, you observe with clarity. You understand that their resistance isn't about your character. It's about the mirror your progress holds up. Understanding removes the need for pettiness. You don't need to prove anything. You don't need to shrink to restore comfort. You simply continue. And that calm continuation is what unsettles them most. Winning alone is a phase most people never survive. They love the idea of transformation, the aesthetic of growth, the motivation at the beginning. But when the room gets quieter, when the invitations slow down, when validation disappears and the work becomes invisible, that's where the majority retreat. This is where most people go back. You didn't. And that's why it feels heavy. Not because you're lost, but because you're early in a process that demands separation before elevation. Solitude isn't a social failure. It's elite territory. It filters out dependency. It burns away performance. It forces you to build internal infrastructure instead of external image. Depth over visibility, substance over applause. You're not building for attention, you're building capacity. Emotional capacity, mental endurance, strategic patience. The kind of foundation that doesn't crack under pressure because it wasn't rushed for approval. You don't need witnesses to validate progress. The discipline itself is shaping you. The repetition is refining you. The silence is strengthening you. Most people need noise to feel significant. You've learned to find significance in refinement. That's rare. And rarity always feels isolating before it feels powerful. But understand what's happening. You're becoming someone inevitable. Not because you're forcing outcomes, but because you're aligning habits with vision. Winning alone isn't lonely. It's selective evolution. This is the phase they don't expect. You don't want revenge. You don't need apologies. You don't even need them to admit the envy you can already sense. That hunger to prove them wrong? It burned out the moment you realized something more important. You're not building to defeat them. You're building to outgrow the entire frame. Your results will speak. Eventually. but you're no longer in a rush to display them. You're driven by something quieter now, becoming undeniable. Not loud, not flashy, just structurally undeniable. The kind of presence that doesn't argue for respect because it naturally commands it. Your posture is relaxed, your eye contact steady, your speech measured. You don't interrupt, you don't overshare, you don't leak emotion to fill silence. You let conversations settle. You let people reveal themselves. You're no longer reacting to energy. You set it. Rooms adjust when you enter. Not because you demand attention, but because you carry intensity. Controlled power. You understand timing. You understand restraint. And that understanding makes you dangerous in the calmest way possible. This is dominance without noise, and it's permanent. Understand this clearly. This isn't your peak. This is your foundation. They're reacting to early stages, to discipline that's still forming, to focus that's still sharpening. If this level of growth unsettles them, imagine what happens when your vision fully matures. They can feel something changing, and they're right. What they sense isn't arrogance. It isn't distance, it's expansion, it's alignment. It's a version of you that no longer negotiates with distraction or diminishes itself for comfort. You're winning alone right now. Building quietly, moving strategically, refining without applause. But you won't be alone at the top, because evolution attracts alignment. Depth attracts depth. Strength attracts strength. Keep building, keep refining, keep moving in silence. This is only the beginning. And the calm you carry now, that's future power.